test this addition method, I will be entering some positive values inside this method, some negative values inside this method, some alphanumeric values inside this method. Whatever the test cases that I'm gonna write, I'm gonna execute all those test cases, all the test code I will be entering inside this method, just to make sure that on the runtime, whatever functionality that this method supports will be executed. Rest other will not be executed. So whatever thing that I've written are as per the expected result, so it should actually pass and rest should be failed. And all this status will be maintained by the JUnit testing framework itself, the unit testing framework, right? So developer, they do unit testing with the help of JUnit. Now why we need these Java frameworks? So we would be, let's say I'll be creating a method that says public void login, and it accepts two arguments, let's say username and password. So today's class is very important because all the framework designing and everything is dependent on today's class, right? So I want everyone should be focused, and if you have any queries, you can ask in between whenever you are not able to understand anything, right? So let's say in testing, I have created a method public void login with two arguments, username and password, and I've written a code inside it. Let's say driver.find element, send keys, username, then send keys, password, then click on login button. Whatever code that I think is required to automate a login scenario, I've written that code inside in this method. Now, in order to test this method, I will be writing some code. I will be writing some code which will actually gonna enter a valid username and password, invalid username and password, and maybe some special characters, and all the scenarios that have actually covered in my manual testing. I will be performing the same and this with this login method. And whatever scenarios, if the login is successfully executed, the test case will be treated as pass, else it will be treated as a failure, right? Now, which one to choose, JUnit or TestNG? This was initially designed for developers only, and this is specifically designed for testers. JUnit and TestNG, there is no difference. They both are the Java framework and are specially created for performing unit testing on the code, on the method that you have written, right? TestNG is basically an enhanced version of JUnit. This is an enhanced version of JUnit. There are many features, many functionalities that you will not find in JUnit are available in TestNG, right? How to execute a test, how to report a failure, almost everything is same when we compare TestNG and JUnit. But companies are mostly working on TestNG. There are many things that you can't do in JUnit that is actually supported with TestNG. So our focus will be on TestNG itself, right? We need not to learn JUnit. If you want to go through JUnit videos, you can go through JUnit videos. I've covered JUnit as well over there. But there is no point of learning JUnit separately. Both are the same thing. Annotations are almost same in TestNG and JUnit, and both works the same way. Right. So if you are familiar with one of this Java framework, then you can easily work on the other one as well. Right. Now, in order to get started with TestNG, there are many ways we can get started. One is that we can have a plugin of TestNG built inside Eclipse. So if I go to there's one main website of TestNG, that is testng.org. So this is the main website of TestNG, and here you can see the documentation part, download, migrating from JUnit. There are a lot of things that we're going to talk about. So first of all, we need to download this TestNG. Now there are a couple of ways we can download TestNG. Either I can download a jar file. There is a Maven dependency. We haven't talked about Maven yet. I'll be telling you what this dependency and how to get this dependency as well, right? And there's something called as Eclipse plugin. You can see Eclipse plugin over here, right? So this is the link you need to copy because our versions are Eclipse 3.4 and above. So what we need to do, we need to go to Window inside Eclipse, and sorry, we need to go to Help and click on Install New Softwares. So as soon as I click over here, I'll be pasting this link over here. Then I'll get an option called TestNG. So we need to select this TestNG, right? And this is the next button. We need to click on next, and it will gonna take at least like 5 to 7 minutes, and the TestNG will be built inside your Eclipse. Right there is nothing else that you need to do. Just click on next, and TestNG will be installed on your Eclipse. Right. Now, once the TestNG is installed, what we will be doing, we'll create a new Java project over here and give this project name as, let's say, TestNG Learning. Right. So you'll find this plugin over here. Once you right click over here and go to build path and click on add libraries. Since this is now inbuilt inside Eclipse, we have already added the plugin. So you'll find it inside add libraries, and you'll get this TestNG over here. You can see JUnit. JUnit is already inbuilt, right? And TestNG, we have added a plugin. You need not to add JUnit separately. It comes along with Eclipse. So these are nothing. These are just the jar files. If I click on next, if I click on finish, you can see a TestNG library is being added over here into my project. If I open this TestNG library, you can see a jar that is testng.jar that has been added over here. So this is only a jar file. You can even search for this jar file on internet. You need not to add a plugin. Just add a jar file in your external jars, and that will still gonna work the same way, right? But plugin helps you with other functionalities as well, right? That will gonna come to know in some time. So what I'm gonna do, I'll right click over here and I'll gonna create a new package. I'll give this name as test cases. Packages are nothing, these are just the folder structure. This is basically one folder that I have created, right? Inside this folder I will be keeping all my test cases, right? Now another thing I will be creating, let's see, I'll gonna create some more packages, right? First I'll gonna talk about some packages, how the packages are being designed and what things are kept inside this package. Now what we were doing initially when we were learning WebDriver, we were creating classes like this. Let's say when we are testing drop downs, we have created a separate class. When we were working with droppable elements, when we were working with flash components, keyboards, we have created separate classes for each functionality, right? We will be doing the same thing over here itself, right? But what here we were doing, we were actually, if you take a look at this code, I am initializing my browser in the same code. I'm navigating to the URL in the same code. I am specifying my implicit weights inside the same code. I am actually handling all my web elements inside the same code. So all my test cases, this test case was to handle a drop-down list. So everything I have written inside the same code. Now there are many other things that I will be performing. I will be performing as in I will be generating logs, right? And I will be, let's say, creating object repositories. Now, if you people have worked on QTP, you must be aware of what object repository is. Object repository is something where we will be maintaining our entire objects as in elements. Elements as in whenever I'm saying buyer.xpath, I'm writing the ID like this over here. Whenever I say just buyer.id, I'm keeping my locator over here. So all the locators related to whatever that you see inside this page, all the locators will be kept inside a separate file. I will be creating some object repositories. So I'll be storing all my elements inside object repositories. Right. I will be generating logs for every event, whether there is a failure or all the response that I want to take from the current session. I will be generating logs. So I will be keeping inside in a separate folder. Right. Same way, if I want to do some Excel reading, I want to read the data from an Excel file, I will be creating some Excel reading utilities as well. So there will be a separate package which will hold my utilities, a util package. Util package can contain Excel reading, can contain sending mails, right? We will be seeing how to send mails, right? Then it can contains any common functionality that is actually accessed in all my test cases. Right, now what these common functionalities are, we're going to talk about it in some time, right? So what we're going to do, inside one project, I will be creating different packages. Packages as in, let's say if I want to store the entire thing on my laptop. So will I store, let's say I want to store my music files, I want to store the movies files, I want to store my personal files, my Word documents, my official documents. Can I store everything inside OneDrive in just C drive? Can I store all of them in C drive? Yes, I can do that. But it's not manageable. Manageable as in, if I need to search for any document, then I will be, let's say there are 10,000 files, I will be navigating to all the files within C drive itself. So that is not manageable. So in order to do that, in order to make it manageable, I will be creating different folders. So I'll create a separate folder for official documents, separate folder for personal documents, separate folder for my movies, separate for songs, so that whenever I need to search for any movie, I'll directly go to that movies folder and I can directly search a particular movie in that folder. In that as well, I can create some subfolders, right? So same way, we will not be writing, let's say I want to automate the entire website, right? Entire website, there is basically 10,000 lines of code that has been written in order to automate the entire website. So will I be keeping all the code inside same class? We're not gonna do that. We can do that, but that thing is not manageable. I can write, I can generate the logs over here, I can create object repositories over here, I can do all the Excel reading, sending mails inside the same page, and inside the same page I can write my test cases as well. But it will be it will be very tedious. It will not be very manageable, as in, let's say if you want to search for any particular like if you come across any error and you want to troubleshoot around that error, so that will not be very much manageable, like searching inside 10,000 lines of code. So in order to do that, we will be managing our code, and in order to manage the code, we will be using some sort of Java framework. So TestNG is one of the framework which helps us in executing our test cases, managing our test cases, managing our test suites, and a lot of other things that we're going to talk about. So we're going to create different packages accordingly. Right. So packages are nothing. These are just a folder structure. If I've created a package like test case over here, I can create another packages. Let's say I'll call it, name it as logs. I'll be generating all the logs over here. I'll create one more package. I'll give it a name as properties. Properties as in, I will be creating my object repository over here. Right. A package with the name, let's say, util. Common utilities will be kept inside this package, inside this folder. These are nothing, these are just the folders. If I show you the exact path from my system, you will see that all these are created as the folders. These are the folders, right? Now there is nothing inside util, nothing inside test cases, nothing inside properties, and nothing inside logs. These are just the folders. I will be keeping my code inside into these packages. Right, now what code we will be keeping, we're going to talk about it in some time. So before starting with that, I'm gonna create one more rough package. Anything that you want to do, any research that you want to do, anything that you want to test before you keep inside the actual packages, you can do all your R&D works and all the research works over here inside the rough package. Right. So how we're gonna get started? We'll start with this rough package first, and we'll first understand how TestNG works. Right. So in order to work with TestNG, I'll be creating a new class, and now from now onwards, we will not be using this main method. This main method will not be used. We haven't studied about TestNG and JUnit. That is the only reason we were actually using main method in order to execute our code, right? Because without main method in Java, we cannot execute our code. But from now onwards, we will never be using this public static void main. So let's see how the execution will be done in that case. TestNG will help us in executing our code. So how will we do that? I'm gonna create a new class, and let's say I'll name it as test login. Right, so this is my login test. And inside it, I'm gonna create a method that says public void do login. Right. And on top of it, I'll add an annotation at the rate test. Now what this test annotation is? Okay, let me remove it for some time. Now in login, in this method, I will be writing some code that will look something like this. I'm not talking about WebDriver right now, right? I'm just talking about TestNG at the moment. So just relate this method to, let's say I'm automating using WebDriver methods. So I'll write something like driver.findElement by.xpath, and then I'll give the XPath over here, and then I'll say dot send keys, right? And this will fill out the username, something like this, right? And same thing, I'm gonna do it for password, and same thing, I'll say click on sign in button, so I can directly say dot click. Right. So this is a code I will be keeping inside my login method. Now, if I don't have the main method, how will I execute it? If I click on run button, let's say if I write something over here, I'll write executing login test. Right. If I click on run button, will this be executed? If I execute it as a Java application, you can see it is not able to find the main method. So nothing gets executed. If I would have written this thing inside a main method, then this would have printed executing login test. But here in TestNG, we're not going to use the main method. So how will we execute it? We'll write something that is called as at the rate test. Now, if I mouse over onto at the rate test, you will find that I'm getting an import option from org.testng.annotation. If I click on this, you can see that this is being imported from TestNG website itself, testng.org website, right? This is a package. And what this test annotation will gonna do, this test annotation will make this method executable and will treat this method as an individual test case. So this method will now be treated as a test case. It means if I right click over here and say run as, this time instead of running it as a Java application, I'll get an option to run as a TestNG test. And if I click on this, you'll see that this method will be executed. Just wait for a second and you're gonna see, you can see test run 1 executing login test, and the test do login is passed. So do login method is treated as an individual test case. If you see the reports, there are reports also being generated inside the results. If you see, you can see pass as 1 and green represent that the test case is passed. Had this been a failure, you would have seen a color red over here, right? So one test got executed and that was passed. Same way, I can create one more method. Let's say I'll name it as public void register user. Now I'll be registering a user at the rate test, executing login test. Right. Now if I say run as TestNG test, you can see that the total execution, the total tests run are 2, and executing login test. Oh, sorry. I should be writing executing registered user test, right? And I'll run it again. So you can see both tests are being executed, executing login test and executing register user test. And in the report, you're gonna see both tests are being executed. In the result, you're gonna see passed 2, and these are the 2 test cases that got passed. Right? Next thing we're gonna see, I'm gonna add one more method. Let's say public void open browser. I need to write some code that can open a browser and navigate to a website. Let's say a code something that says driver.get and navigate to gmail.com. So I can just write over here opening the browser. Now just relate all these things with your web driver. How we open a browser, how we close a browser, right? There are separate methods for handling these functionalities now. So opening a browser and closing a browser. On top of opening a browser, I'll write something called as at the rate before method. Now, like we have at the rate before method, we have another one that says at the rate after method. Now, what this at the rate after method and before method will gonna do? This before method will be called before calling any test case, before calling any test annotation, before login and before registering a user. This will be called, right? Means it will be called once before login test, and then again it will be called before the user registration test. Similarly, after method, it will be called after executing this login method and after executing this register user method. So if I write over here closing the browser and save it, run it again, TestNG test, and you're gonna see the execution. So these are the results. So opening the browser, see at the rate before method called, then executing your test, then closing the browser at the rate after method called, and after that again opening the browser, executing user registration test, and then closing the browser. Okay, I'll gonna show you how you can get the entire list of annotations. So one thing you can get it from this TestNG plugin as well. If you right click over here, go to TestNG, you can directly, instead of creating a class normally like a Java class, you can click on create TestNG class. You'll see all these annotations over here. These are a list of annotations which are very frequently used. Right, so far we have talked about at the rate test. Okay, you don't find it over here. We need to add it separately. Then we talked about before method and after method. Right, we're gonna talk about other annotations as well soon. So any doubts so far in before method and after method? Why we are actually using it, and sometimes you should be able to understand it, because these methods, these annotations are basically defining the flow, the execution of our test cases in our entire project. So it will actually going to define the flow of our project, which things to initialize first, when to run our test case, and when to like kill everything. So let's say we have just called opening the browser, closing the browser. Now, before this, I want to create some connections, like connections with Excel file, connection with database. So I'm going to create a method that says public void, let's say create DB connection. And I'll write over here, creating the DB connectivity. On top of it, I'll write before test. Now before test, anything that I write inside before test will be executed at the very beginning before executing anything inside this test login class. Right. So before test will be called anything that you want to initialize it before running any of the code inside this class. You need to write it inside before test. And similarly, after executing everything from this class, you need to quit everything. Let's say you need to close the database connection. So you'll create a method public void close DB connection, and you're going to write a code over here for closing the DB connection. Sorry. On top of it, after test. And I'm going to import this after test. Now if I save this and run this, you're going to find that create DB connection will be called at the very beginning before executing anything, and close the DB connection is called at the very end. Right. So you can relate the things from WebDriver. We'll first create DB connection, then we will gonna launch a browser, we'll execute our test, and after that we'll close the browser, we'll quit the DB connection at the very end. Similarly, let's say this is the first class, right? Test login. After that, I want to sorry guys, sorry about that. After this login test, I want to automate the second functionality. So second functionality could be, let's say, booking a ticket. Let's say I'm on Expedia.com or MakeMyTrip.com. I'm logging in, and after that I'm searching for flights. So there will be a second class. There will be a second class that will be created. I'll give this class name as, let's say, second test, or let's say test flight reservations. Right. So this will be a second class, and over here I'm gonna have some methods that say public void search flights, right? And over here I can write executing flight, uh, or let's say I can say searching for flights, right? And this should also be at the rate test annotation, right? And let us import it. Now when I run this, this will be run individually. See, searching for flights. Same way I can have 10 other classes over here or 100 other classes over here. After searching for flights, I want to book a ticket. So I'm going to create a book a ticket class. I want to add users to the database. There's a interface where I can search for users, I can add new users, right? So I'll be having different classes. So what if I want to execute all these classes in a sequence? How will I do that? I will not gonna go inside each class and then run it as a TestNG test. I need to integrate all these classes and form up a test suite. So how the test suites are being performed? How the test suites are being designed? So test suites will be designed with the help of another file, that is testng.xml file. And with a plugin that we have actually installed, the TestNG plugin, it is very easy to generate that file. How will we generate it? I'll simply gonna right click on my project, on the root of my project, and go to this TestNG option over here and click on this convert to TestNG. As soon as I click on convert to TestNG, you're gonna see a code over here, something like this. And you're gonna click on next, and you can click on finish over here. You'll see a file called testng.xml file. If you open this file, you're gonna see something like this. So this is an XML file, right? A standard TestNG. This is another statement, document type, suite system, TestNG org. This is a mandatory statement to write to treat this file as a TestNG file, right? This parallel equal to null. You can remove it for this time. Suite name, you can give any suite name. This is the test suite name that we are giving. We can give it any suite name. I can say learning TestNG, right? Any name you can give to the suite. Classes, another tag, you'll find that this is a suite opening tag and this is a suite close tag, right? This is a test opening tag and this is a test close tag. Each individual test that you're gonna see over here will be reported inside a report that will be generated. TestNG will gonna generate an auto-generated report, automatically generated report. So this will be, let's say I'll name it as login test. Any user defined name I can give over here. So whenever a report is generated, this login test will be printed over there, right? And I can remove individual, I can just keep only one class over here. Let's say I want to create a second test. I can simply copy this and paste it again. So inside this, I'm gonna keep my login class only, and inside this, I'm gonna keep my flight reservation class only. So class, how will you create it? This is a package name dot the class name. Package name dot class name. So class is test flight reservation, class is test login test. And over here, if you have written login test, you need to change this name to, let's say, search flight test, right? Okay, let me unmute you, Prabhat. Just give me a moment. I've unmuted you. I don't know how you got muted again. Yep. All right. You have any queries, Prabhat?
Yeah, so in this XML file that you have just shown us, right? What is the relationship between the suite name and test name? Is there any relationship or no?
Suite is a collection of test cases. Suite is nothing. It's basically a collection of test case. Test is a individual test that will be reported. These
Okay.
are individual.
So
Yeah.
within one test suite, we can keep multiple test cases, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. But just now we have removed that second test case and created a new class,
No,
new test. So what was the
like
reason for that?
within a test, I can have multiple classes as well. But
Hmm.
when there are failure reported for these classes, then it will say that the login test has failed. It will not say
Right.
that the search flight result test has failed. So I've created a separate entity for flight test. You can have n number of
Okay.
test cases. These will be treated as a test cases in your report.
Okay.
Right. So what I've done, I've created two classes and I've given the sequence of those classes over here. Next time I'll create a third class. I just need to copy this test and again paste it over here and just give the third name of the class. That's it. And change this.
So basically we are creating one test and which is one class actually, right?
Exactly. Exactly. One class, one test case per class. So what
Okay.
happens when I run this test ng.xml file? You'll see that both of them will be executed in a sequence. See over here.
So the sequence we need to provide specifically, or it will be top-down approach, how it will work.
I'll gonna let you know about that as well. We can define the sequence within the same class itself, and we can define the sequence within the what you say is the XML file itself, within the suite itself. This will gonna
Okay.
treat
So
it as
both
a test suite. Yeah, both ways we can define
it
sequence.
can. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So there's one more thing. If you take a look at the results. See, creating a DB connection is called over here, and then it got closed over here. And then the second test got executed for searching for flights, right? Maybe I need to initialize WebDriver. I mean, before we call any of these things, I need to create an object of Firefox driver because all these things will be happening on Firefox driver. So let's say I go to my login class and I'll say public void. Let's say we will call this approach as a setup method. So there are some fixtures and then public void, a tear down approach and setup method. So anything that we need to initialize, we want that anything that you want to initialize before you execute your test case, before you do anything inside this project, you need to do all those things inside a setup method. So let's say I'll write driver equal to new Firefox driver. And anything that you want to end after your test cases are being executed, we're going to write them over here. Let's say driver dot quit. Right. Now, if I write before test, then it will be executed before this test. And if I write after test, then it will be executed after this test only. But I don't want to call this driver.quit after this test. I want that if I have 10 Java files over here, then the driver should quit after executing all these 10 files. After executing all my test cases, then the driver should quit. So what we're gonna do, there's an additional annotation over here at the rate before suit. Similarly, like we have before suit, we have after suit. Now what these annotations will gonna do, if I run my TestNG XML file again, you're gonna see that driver was initialized at the very beginning and it was quit after searching for the flights. So this before suit and after suit will be executed before calling anything inside a test suite, and after suit will be called after executing entire things inside your test suite. We can have one @test inside a class and we can have multiple tests @test inside a class. But logically, if we talk about before suit and after suit, this should be only once entire in your entire test suite. We cannot have multiple before suits. That would not make any sense, right? Any questions so far?
Yeah, Raman, one question. Yeah. So that before suit and after suit is pretty much clear. It will be executed very beginning and at the very end, right? But what is the difference between before method and before test? So it's
See,
kind of close.
before method, let's say here we have written before test and here we have written before method. Now before method will be called before calling any @test. So in this class we have two @test annotations. If we have three @test annotation, this before method will be called three times inside this class before every test annotation. But this before test will be executed only once inside this class. This @test is specifically to this class only, login class only. This is specific to this class only. So this will be executed only once inside this class. And before method will be executed before any @test annotation inside this class. Right, so we can have before test once created inside this class and once created inside this class, and in all the classes we can have one before before test annotation. But
So in
before
a
suit will be only once in all the classes.
so before test runs only once within a class, right?
Yes, that is within a class.
Only once.
Yes, only once.
Okay. But before test runs, as many test annotations are there before that.
Sorry, got confused. Before test will gonna run only once inside this class, and before method will gonna run before every test case, before every @test.
Okay, similar for after method and after test also, right?
Exactly, exactly. Right. Anyone, any
Okay.
confusion? Is it mandatory to have at the rate before? No, it's not mandatory. But there are some conditions we will be keeping inside at the rate before test. If I don't write at the rate before test, after test, it will still gonna execute. Our the execution is done for our at the rate test cases. If you take a look at the report, then in the report you'll only gonna see your test cases. See login test, user registration test, search flight test. You're not going to see at the rate before suit or after suit or after test or before test over here. You're just going to see your at the rate test annotation. It will only going to show you the test cases that are being executed. Right? Yes. You can write only one before method and after method. You cannot have multiple before or after methods. Similarly, you cannot have multiple before test inside a same class. And if we talk about before suit, it should be only once inside the entire suit, right? But in our same test, we can have n number of at the rate test annotation. So let's talk more about this test annotation to make things more clear. Now what I'm gonna do, I've created one at the rate test over here, a second at the rate test over here, right? Let me change their name to, let's say, first test, and I'll rename it to second test. Then I'm going to create some more at the rate test. So the functionality will be a bit clear to you. Let's say third test, and let's say fourth test. Right, and I'll write over here executing first test, executing second test, executing third test, and executing the fourth test. Right, and if I right click, run as TestNG test, let's take a look at the results. So you can see opening the browser, executing first test, closing the browser, opening the browser, fourth test, closing the browser, opening the browser, second test, closing the browser, opening the browser, third test, closing the browser, then closing the DB connection. See, creating the DB connection, this is before test, and closing the DB connection, this is after test. This is before suit and this is after suit. So we have just executed one individual class. We have not executed it through TestNG XML. So that is the reason the second class didn't get executed over here. Yes, before method, after method will be executed before calling, uh, before executing at the rate test. Right? Now you can see over here, the first test got executed. After that, the fourth test got executed. Then the second one and then the third one. So there is no sequence, right? And even let's say my first test, if I just remove, just comment out this before test, after test for some time, I'll show you just at the rate test. I'll just comment them out, and even the before method, after method as well. Right, and let's say I'll run it, and in the console, you're gonna see four tests executed, and these are the four tests that got executed. Now you want to execute them in a sequence. You don't want that, you want that after first, second should come, then third should come, then the fourth should come. So how will you do that? There is something that is called as priority in TestNG. No, this is, you can say that right now, if we see over here, then the alphabetical approach is being followed, right? But we don't want to execute in an alphabetical order. We want to execute in our own sequence. So on sequence we can give it with the help of something called as priority. So if I write over here, if I give a bracket and write priority equal to 1. So this will be the first, this will be treated as the first priority, the high priority. Same way I can have priorities over here, 2, then 3, then 4. So I've defined the priorities within the test cases. And if I run them, you can see that first, second, third, and then fourth. There were 4 tests got executed in the same priority that I've given. First being the highest priority and fourth being the lowest priority. So this is how we can define the priorities as well. Right? Any doubts, any confusion so far? Now let's say I want to do compare some data as in I'll create a new test, and let's say I'll say test validate titles over here. This is again important thing. So I've created a method public void test, let's say titles, and I'll write something called as @test. So this will be a test case, import it through TestNG. Right, you need to make sure when you are importing it, sometime you get a second option that import it through org.junit. Don't import it through JUnit, otherwise the TestNG functionalities will not gonna work. Right, and after that, I'm gonna write, let's say executing, or let's say I just validate 2 titles. Titles as in, see, we are not talking about WebDriver today. We are just focusing on TestNG. Your WebDriver is only 25% in your entire Selenium automation. Rest is your frameworks and other APIs that you will be integrating to form up a complete Selenium automation, right? So from now onwards, you're going to see a lot of new stuff. Uh, not only just driver.find elements. So our testing is not only limited to finding the elements now. There will be n number of new things we're gonna see from now onwards, right? So let's say I have created let's say actual title and expected title. Now actual title, how will you retrieve the actual title? You will say driver.getTitle, right? You'll say driver.getTitle and it will give you the current title of the page. You'll store it inside actual title. Let's say you got the actual title as Gmail. And then you'll see the you'll get the expected title. Let's say you get the expected title from Excel reading. You have stored your expected title inside an Excel sheet and you'll be reading it from there. Right. We're gonna talk about Excel reading soon. So right now I'm just hard coding it, Yahoo. So how to compare these 2 titles? I want to compare these 2 titles. So what should I do? What should I write over here? In normal ways, how you compare these 2 variables?
Now we can use dot equals method.
Dot equals method. Very true. So I can write if actual title dot equals. Um, yeah, just a second.
Actually, we have the class, right? Already method string comparison. We can do, right?
Yeah, we can do string comparison. We can do anything that is feasible in core Java, right? So if I say if actual title dot equals expected title, then it should write something that is test case pass, right? Else it should write test case fail. right? So what if I execute it? What if I execute it? What it should print? If I execute it, it should actually print test case failed, right? So if I run it, run as a TestNG test, and if we take a look at the console, you're gonna see test case failed, right? But what we see inside a result, passed. Test title is passed. If you see the result, you're gonna see that everything is in green. It says pass. Rather, it should report a failure over here because the expected is not equal to actual. So the test case should fail. This if and else is only for printing things. I mean, when we are comparing and we are asking him to do something, just print this test case pass. We are just printing it over here. This if and else will not gonna add a failure to your report. This will never be used for generating failures for your test cases. So instead of if and else, there are some inbuilt classes inside TestNG. There is a class that is assert. So we're going to talk about assertions now. So there is a class and a method that says if I say assert dot assert equals. So you can see a lot of things like Boolean data type, character data type. We are actually focused on the string data type over here. So over here, you can see the definition, assert that two strings are equal. If they are not equal, then throw an assertion error. So parameters actual and expected. It accepts the actual value and the expected value. So if I say actual, I can give actual title over here. Expected, I can give expected title over here. So whatever that we were trying to achieve with if and else, we can achieve with this particular statement. Assert dot assert equals. Right. Now if they both matches, then the test case will pass. Otherwise, the test case will fail. So if I right click over here, if I say run as TestNG test, you're going to see that there is an assertion failure. Your test run and fails one, and you're going to see assertion error expected Yahoo, but was found gmail.com. And if you take a look at your results, your reports, you're going to see the same failure over here. Your test case failed, and this is what being reported inside your report. Right? So this is how using assertions we can compare two variables and we can uh, print, pass, and fail inside your reports. We can generate failures inside report. Without assertions, you cannot generate failures. Right? Now let's come back to login one. Right? And what I'm gonna do, I'll just keep these two test cases and I'll just comment out the rest too. And
Raman, I have a question here. So this assert is a method in TestNG, right? So this is again an API, correct?
TestNG is an API. Yes, this is a jar file. You feel
Okay.
you've added a
So
jar file. This is an API.
yeah. So we need to go through this entire API to see what all methods are available and
Yeah,
which all.
there are a lot of things. TestNG is actually a huge world on its own, right? But I'm telling you the most important thing which are very frequently used, right? And we've
Okay.
been using all these things in framework designing, right? Now let's say I'll again rename it to login test and rename it to let's say enter user details test. Right. Now first the login one will be executed, then the second test will be executed. So I'll change it to login and user details. Right. Because after logging into the website, I will be entering the user information. Right. Now what happens if this test case got failed, the login one. Let's say I called assert dot. I can forcefully fail this test case. I can just write fail, assert dot fail, and give a message over here. Uh, Login was not successful. So if the login is not successful, should the enter user detail test be executed or not? Let's run it and see. When this is executed, you can see there are two test cases that got executed. One failed. This one got failed. Okay, here I'm printing something, and the session was after this, so it failed. But if you take a look at the results, the login got failed and enter user detail got executed. Rather, this should not be executed. If the login is failing, I mean, how can we enter the user details if the login is failing? So this is basically dependent on login test, right? This method is dependent on the login test. If the login is successful, this should be executed only then. If it is not successful, then this should be skipped. So what I can do, I can add something called as depends on method. So I can say depends on method equal to login test. Depends on methods. Yeah, login test. Right. So I've created a dependency over here. So as soon as I say depends on method login test, if I save this, if there is any failure inside this login test, then this test will not be executed. If I comment out this, then there will be no failure, and if I run this, both of them will be executed. If I execute them, if you see the TestNG result, both of them are executed. Right? Now, if I again change this thing and make it fail, if I run this, run as a TestNG test, you're gonna see that skipped user detail test. If you see the results, this one got failed and the second one got skipped. So second one was not executed because the second one was dependent on the first test case. So this is what we call as dependencies within the test case. And if you take a look over here, you'll find all this documentation, everything over here. If you go to the TestNG main website, if you go to the documentation tab, just give me a moment. See all these things. We just talked about. Uh, 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 just one second. Dependencies with annotations depends on methods. TestNG itself is a huge. There is a huge documentation for TestNG, right? And still, if you want that this test should be executed, there is something more that you can do. You can write something called as, just give me a moment. If I show you one more thing over here, just give me a moment. There's something called as hard dependencies and soft dependencies. We have just seen hard dependencies, right? So all the method that you depend on must have run and succeeded uh, for you to run, right? If all the methods are successfully executed, then only the dependent method will be executed. Rest, if you want that, still you want to execute that method, there's something called as always run equal to true. This is basically a soft dependency. So if you just write always run equal to true over here, so this method will always be executed, no matter whether the login is passed or not. If I right click run as TestNG test, you'll still see that this method got executed. If you see in the result, this method got executed. Right. Although it is a dependent method, but you have forcefully made it executed. If you remove this, then it will be skipped. But if you don't want to skip it, then say always run equal to true. Right? So this is about dependencies within the test cases. Right? So we're gonna take a 5 minute short break over here, and after 5 minutes, we're gonna talk about a couple of more things. Right? There are so many things that we're gonna discuss in TestNG. So we're gonna take 5 minutes break, and then we're gonna uh, talk about it. Soft dependencies, it depends. If you don't want to like skip this method, then you can use it in runtime. Otherwise, I've seen it very rarely used, right? So you can see the definition as well. If set to true, this method will be run even the depend on method that fails, right? So there are other things we're going to talk about after the break. That is how to read data from Excel, parameterization, and then grouping, and then I'm going to show you the HTML report that is being generated, right? So we're going to take 5 minutes break. It's basically 43 in my watch. We're going to meet at 48 or 49, right? So let's go for a break. I'm going to add a note over here so that everyone should be able to see this. All right, all right, team. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
All right. So we can get started. All right. Okay. So far we have seen a lot of things like and like whatever that we have discussed so far in TestNG, right? We have seen couple of test annotations, couple of other annotations, right? Then we have seen dependencies, we have seen priorities, right? Now, let's say there are times when we need to skip some test cases, right? Now, this one got skipped based on it was dependent on this test case, right? So this got failed and this got skipped. Now, sometimes we have to skip test cases on a particular condition. Like that condition is basically generated by us only, a user-defined condition, right? Here it was not a user-defined condition. Here it was actually the expected didn't met actual, or there was a failure due to which a test case got failed, and the second one was dependent on this test case, and it got skipped. Sometimes we have to forcefully skip the test case. So how will we do that? If you need to skip any test case forcefully, you can simply write throw new skip exception, and you can write over here skipping this test on any particular condition you want. So you can say if this thing is not matching over here, then there is no need to execute this test case. So you can skip that test case. So if I run this now as a TestNG test, you can see this one test got executed and that one got skipped. And you can see a skip reason over here. So it says skipping the test. If you go over here, this test got skipped. And the results, you can see the test case is skipped, right? So this is how you can skip a test case as well. Now we have seen how a test case is passed, how a test case is failed, how a test case is skipped. Now if I execute all these things inside a TestNG XML, all three files, so far we have added two test cases. I want to add a third one as well. So I'll just copy this test tag and add another one, and give the third one name as, let's say, validate title test, right? And I'll just give the name of this class over here, ref dot validate title. That's it, right? And if I execute TestNG XML, so you're gonna see all the three classes will be executed. Alright, we have commented out a lot of things. So over here, if you see the results, this is how our result shows up. Login failed, enter user detail passed, this skipped, this failed, right? But this is not the actual report that you will be presenting it to your managers, to your client, right? Uh, there is an inbuilt report that is generated by TestNG. If you refresh this particular uh, folder, right, your workspace, you're gonna see a test output folder is automatically generated. If you open this, you'll find something called as index.html. See, an HTML report got generated automatically. If you open this and go to Chrome and paste this URL over here, you're gonna see a report something like this. An HTML report got generated, something like this. 4 method, 2 failed, 1 pass, 1 skipped. This is the failed method. You'll see a failure assertion over here. Login was not successful. This is a skip method, skipping this test, and this is a passed method. Only one test got passed. But this is not a very good report. I mean, the UI is not very interactive. So another report that you can use is something called as email label report. If you go back to your workspace again, you'll find one report that is email label report over here. Right. I'll just open this up and I'll show you how this report looks like. Just copy this and paste it over here. So this looks a bit nice. I mean, more readable. So it shows how many test cases were there, how many got skipped, how many got failed, what is the total time of execution for all these tests, and these are the details associated. What was a skip failure? What was like expected Yahoo but found Gmail.com? This test got failed, right? And one of them got passed, so this got passed, and all of them are reported over here. This is an auto-generated report. You have not used any other utility to generate this report. Although we can use another utilities as well, right? So this is one of the report it got generated, right? So any questions
Uh,
so far?
yeah, about this report, can we modify the layout of it,
You cannot modify
or it?
this report, but there are other customized reports available, other APIs available. I'm going to show you one of another report as well. But for that, I need to introduce another plugin that is Ant. So one of the report is generated through Ant as well. So I'm going to show you that thing as well, right? So this is very basic report that I've shown you so far. Now let's talk about other things before we go to that part.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Hi, this is Suresh. I have one question to you.
yeah, Suresh.
Let us say in my test I have the under test cases. So whenever we get a fail for the any test case for 10 or 20, so I don't want to go execute for the remaining test cases. So I should be forcibly stop at maybe whenever it failed at maybe 20 steps, 20 test case or like that. So how I can write?
In case of a failure, if you want that that particular scenario happen, then you can quit the driver. It should not execute further. But all the other test cases,
So
you need to make it dependent on that particular test case.
I don't know at what particular case is going to fail. So in that case.
No, I mean this actually you should be knowing. I mean, if you don't know, like because you must have done the manual testing of it before you're trying with automation. If the login is not successful, there is no need for executing other tests. Your test should stop at that point of time. So that is how your test cases should be designed.
Okay.
All right. So If anyhow, I mean, login is failed, it will not going to move further. Your test cases will not be executed. All will be treated as a failure only, your entire test suite.
Yeah, I don't want to fail. I should be stop at whenever the fail happens. So I don't want to go for a next case also.
Yeah, then you need to make it dependent.
Okay. And one more thing you told in the TestNG, we can able to create this object repository under where we can see here
Uh, we,
object where
we,
it everything.
we haven't created it yet. We will be creating it soon. I'll be adding
Okay.
the
Thank you.
repositories over here, object repository over here.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Right. How to get the output in the test output folder? It's very easy. Just refresh your project and you'll see a test output. It is auto-generated. There's nothing that I've done to generate it. It is auto-generated by the TestNG API itself. Right. So let's take a look at other things. There's something called as grouping. We can group the test case as well. Group as in,
Raman,
yep.
before we move it, one more question about that email report. You said we cannot change the layout, so we cannot add like if I want to add the name, the executor name, and I'm getting it from the system, that system.environment. I'm getting the username, and I want to pass that username on the email label report so that I can see, okay, who actually executed that report.
There are actually you cannot do. I'm not sure if you can do that modification over here, but there must be some TestNG listeners available. I can show you. I'll show you one more customizable report. I have actually added that thing over here. There is another report that you can generate. I've added a section called as customizable report. Let me see if I've added over here something called as extends report. Just yeah, this is customized report. If you go to this TestNG section, there's something called a customized report. A report,
Okay.
there's basically an API. This is created by one of the person, and I really like this API. So I'll just show it to you how that report is generated. Again, this is not a TestNG report, but this is another separate API. If you say extends report, uh, this extend report. Yeah, something related to this. This is a separate API. So this is one of the person who has actually generated this API specifically for Selenium WebDriver, and it's very easy to use. I've actually shown that entire execution. So this is how a report is generated, and a pass, a fail, warning. And if you want to show, if I show you some of the preview of this report, you can generate a preview something like this. And here, okay, they have actually come up with a new version. So in the previous version, it was actually reporting who actually, yeah, system info. You can see a system info. So this was a user who actually worked on it. Windows operating system, the Java version, environment production, and uh, total test pass, failed, all this thing started at and the end time, right? And along with it,
Okay.
you can add the images as well. If a test case is passed, there are screenshots that are being added. You can see this is a screenshot. So these are a customized report. So we have a jars available for all these things. I think they have came up with a new utility where you can add a video as well. So this is basically a video of your test failure. Maybe they are working on it right now. So again, it's an open source project, and I have actually shown the execution over here. So how you can use this report. This the entire video, the entire setup is there. So you can start if you want. You can see this thing over here. Same using TestNG, I'm actually explaining all these things. And whenever there is a failure, a screenshot will be added, my information, each and everything will be reported over here. So this thing you can integrate in your test. Right?
Okay.
Just give it a
Raman,
yeah.
Screenshot part is a part of that reporting thing, or it's a different thing
No,
altogether? Screenshot.
screenshot is actually generated in WebDriver itself. You can attach a screenshot
Okay.
to a report, but TestNG report
Okay.
won't allow you to attach a screenshot. You need to use some customization over there.
So that part is included in the videos, because screenshot is very important part. That's why I'm asking.
See, this is how I'm using this report, and I'm attaching a screenshot for a login failure.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there are that is the only reason I say initially. I mean there are lots and lots of APIs that you will be integrating to Selenium. So Selenium itself, WebDriver itself, is not fully customized. They only provide you the methods how you can automate a website. They don't provide you a method how you can manage your test cases, your test suites, all the test scenarios, screenshots, properties. They don't provide all these things. So a lot of things I'll be showing it to you once we are designing a framework, right? And these are the initial things that are required. All right. So let's talk about some other things now. Another important part, how to read data from an Excel file. Right. I'll be reading the data with the help of some utility that I have designed. I'm going to show you that utility. If you specifically want to go through the Excel reading part, there are lectures over here. I want that everyone should go through these lectures, like reading Excel files. Okay, for POI, I have added some more lectures. Okay, I have not added those lectures over here. I'll be adding it over here. I've created some new lectures for each and every class of Excel reading. So Excel reading, if you're talking about Excel reading, again, it is not supported by TestNG and not supported by your Selenium itself. So these libraries to read data from Excel file, let's say if I go to Excel, I have a column called username, then password, then is correct. So TestNG will not going to provide you any method that will help reading the data from here. Let's say I have a data over here, and then password, and this, then password, and this, something like this, right? And I want to read the data from this file. So TestNG will not gonna do that, right? In order to read and write data from an Excel file, in order to actually make a connection with your Excel file to perform reading and writing, you need to use another API that is basically Apache POI API. This is again another open source project provided by Apache. If you go to Google and if you search for, so some people they prefer using JXL. You can see JXL jar. There's another API to read Excel file. Some people use Apache PO API. So Apache POI is very popular, right? More than JXL, right? It has a support for the latest Excel files as well as the previous Excel files. Like there are two Excel files, one with XLS format and the second one with XLSX format. So POI provides you functionality to reading both format, right? And it's pretty much simple using POI API, right? So what you need to do, you need to go to Apache POI website, and you need to go to this page. And here you're gonna see there are a lot of components available over here, like Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Apache POI is basically the Java API for reading Microsoft documents, and this is again completely open source. So they've already done all the hard work. They have already provided you the methods which will help you in reading the data from Excel file, from Word file, from PowerPoint, and different other Microsoft documents, right? But we are focused on Excel, and Excel, you can see there are two things available. One is HSSF, and the second one is XSSF. These two are basically classes. These are the classes, and these classes HSSF, if you're working with the previous version of Excel, that is the Excel 2003 and that version, which has a format which has the extension XLS, then you need to use this class. If you're working with the latest version, then XSSF will gonna support the latest version, all the latest version. That is XLSX, right? And this is a quick guide. If you go over here, they've provided you all the features, how to create a new workbook, to create a new worksheet, to create a new cell, to fill colors to that cell, reading and writing. We are more focused on reading and writing. So they have provided you all the code as well. How you need to call the workbook, how you need to call the sheet. So each and everything I've actually explained in a detailed video lecture, right? So you can go through that video lecture, but here I'm gonna show you some utility, right, that I've generated. So that is again one-time effort. So I'll be talking about that utility more, right? So how we can get started and work with the POE APIs, right? But before that, we need to understand the concept of parameterization, how TestNG supports parameterization. Parameterization as in reading the data in a form of parameters. It could be through Excel file, it could be through Notepad file, it could be through any source, right? So first, we're gonna see how parameterization is being done. So I'm gonna create a new class. This is again very important. So I'll say test parameterization. I know these are so many topics and some topics are a bit heavy as well, right? But don't worry about right now. Just try to understand the things. Don't try to memorize everything. You cannot learn all these things in just one day, right? Just try to understand the concept. You have the video with you, so you can repeat that video session again and again and just try to implement that thing on your own. Then you will be comfortable in all these things. If you have never worked on it, don't worry about it. Just try to understand it right now, right? And after that, once I will give you this video, just go through it once again and try to implement all these things from your hand. Then you will be very much comfortable in it, right? But this is the way how these things are being designed. There is no other process. There is no shortcut, right? So what I'm gonna do in order to do parameterization, I will be creating some method that says public static and the method name, let's say get data. Now this method will gonna accept data. In which format will gonna accept the data? Let's say I want to read the data from this Excel file. Now there could be a data. The data could be in a form of a string. The data could be in a form of an integer. It could be in a form of boolean or float or long. There could be any data type, any type of data available, and we want that this method should accept data for all the types. I could have made it as string, and I want to get the string data from here, and I want to get the data in a form of a rows and columns. So I'll be creating some type as two-dimensional array over here in Eclipse. String two-dimensional array, one for row and one for column. It will gonna read the data from row and column. Maybe I need to read the integer data, so I'll change it to int, right? Or maybe I need to read some other data type, so I'm gonna change it accordingly. But there has to be some generic data type which should accept all the sort of data in any data type. So there is basically one super class, right, which we call as mother of all classes in Java, and that is basically an object class. If I write object as a data type over here, it will gonna accept the data from string, from character, from integers, from any sort of data type. It will gonna accept. So this is the very first thing we'll be writing over here, and we're gonna say at the rate data provided. This is my method which will actually going to provide me the data. Now data will be read in a form of a two-dimensional array. So I'm going to create an object of this object class itself. I'm going to say something like this: object data equal to new object, like this. And here I will be defining total number of rows and total number of columns. So I'm hard coding it right now. I'm not reading it from the Excel sheet at this moment. We'll talk about Excel connectivity, right? But before that, we need to understand TestNG parameterization. So I'll write total number of rows as 2, total number of columns as 3. So why I'm writing 2 rows over here? I can see 3 rows over here. But the data, it is actually starting from the second row. So we have data inside 2 rows and inside 3 columns, right? We'll not be reading this header. This is just an header. So 2 rows and 3 columns over here, and then it should actually return you the data like this. Now here we're going to write some code which we're going to read each individual cell from here, and we're going to get the data from each individual cell. So for the time being, I'm just hard coding it. I'll say data at the index 0 to 0. So 0, 0 index will be the first cell of this Excel, 0, 0. This will be 0, 1. This will be 0, 2. Right? Same way, this will be 1, 0. This will be 1, 1. This will be 1, 2. Right? So at the 0, 0 index, I have the first name, that is Raman. Right? Same way, I'll just copy it and say 0, 1, 0, 2, and I'll write password over here, and I'll say is correct value, right? I'll just gonna repeat this for the second row, which is at the first index. So second set of data will be there, and like this. So this is how our parameterization is done. Now what is the need of parameterization? Now let's say I got a task that there's a login test. There's a login test. Let's say public void do login. Right, this is a login test. It accepts your username and password. Right, and it has @test annotation. Now what you want to do, I have an Excel sheet. Over here, I have, let's say, data inside 10,000 lines. So it means I have 10,000 different users over here, for which I want to execute this test. I want to check login is working fine for all the users or not. So will I be writing 10,000 will I be executing it 10,000 times for this for first set of data, then the second set of data, then the third set of data, or will I be creating 10,000 different methods over here? Do login user 1, do login user 2, do login user 3. I'll not be doing it in this way. Parameterization in TestNG will actually going to help us implementing this scenario. So this @test will be repeated n number of times the rows that you'll find over here in your Excel sheet. It will be first executed for this, then again it will be automatically executed for the second test, then third, then fourth, then fifth, then sixth, then so on. You just need to define your data over here, and parameterization will gonna do all the stuff. So if I have defined my data over here, I have two set of data. I have two set of data. It means that I have two test cases over here. My first test case is for this user, and the second test, the same test should be repeated for the second user. So what I can do, I can create normal test method. I say public void test data, right? And this should be @test, @test, and I'll import this test annotation, right? Now what we're going to do, I need to read the data from here. So there are 3 columns. So the number of parameters that you see over here, you need to give them as an argument to this @test data. So these are 3 columns. These are rows and these are columns, right? So columns you need to define over here. Like let's say you have 3 columns over here: username, password, and is correct. Inside your Excel sheet, you have 3 columns. So the same 3 columns should be presented over here as an local arguments to your test case. String username, string password, and then string is correct. And over here, you'll say something that is data provider equal to get data, like this. Now, if I just print these variables, if I just print these variables, let's see what happens. I print username, I print password, and I print the is correct value, like this, right? And if I run this stuff, you're gonna see, if I run this, you can see two tests are being executed. In the result, you can see two tests are being executed. And if you see over here, these are the two results that got executed. And if I go to the results, you'll see that test data has been executed twice. Once for this set of data, then again for this set of data. Had there been more rows, it would have executed the same test data for those number of rows. So right now we have only two rows over here. We have given two rows over here. So it has executed this at the rate test twice. If I give three rows over here, if I change it to three, I need to give one more set of data. This data will be read from the Excel sheet itself. Right now I'm hard coding it, but in the next example, I'll be reading it from the Excel sheet itself. Let's select this. And if I again run it, so now there are three rows. If I again run it as a TestNG, you can see three tests has been executed. So this test has been executed thrice. Right. Now let's say after this there is one more column. If you change the column sequence over here, if you add one more column to this parameter, right, and if you run it, if you don't change it in your test method, then you're gonna see a failure over here. If I run this, you can see data provider is trying to pass four parameters, but the method test parameterization test, it accepts only two. So this is it takes only three. Username password is correct. So there are four parameters that the data provider is trying to pass, but this is accepting only three. So number of columns over here, number of arguments over here, and here we need to have the number of arguments to test data method, because it is actually taking the data provider from get data. So this is how you should be actually writing, doing the parameterization. Right. We're not going to take the accelerating concept today because it will going to take like some time, and we are it's almost we are 10 minutes left to 2 hours. Right. We're going to take that accelerating concept in our tomorrow session. Right. So now we're going to do up till this much today. I know we have seen a lot of things in just one day. Right. But this is how it goes in whenever we are executing something in a flow. So there are so many things that we need to cover inside TestNG. Right. So that's about it. Now, guys, if you have any questions, any thing to ask, you can ask it right now. You can unmute yourself and you can ask. Okay, let me unmute Arvind. Yeah, Sujai, I'll gonna give you information of that. Just send me a separate email. I'll gonna forward you. I've already created videos on that. All right,
Hi
Arvind.
Raman, I have one question.
Yeah.
So for the previous session, day 5, so you gave the session like YouTube. the flash trace and our YouTube action scripts and all APIs. So we need to get from the developers for this one web testing. So for same thing will be applicable for Android OS testing also, mobile testing.
No, for Android testing, if you're using APM, you need not to take any help from your developer. You can, even if you find any app on a Play Store, just download that app on your mobile device and you can directly work
Okay.
on that. I'll be showing you examples on that.
How we can find those web elements for
Through,
mobile testing and all?
Android Automator, UI Automator. So like we have,
Oh, it will give that one. Okay.
yeah, like we have Firepath here in Firebug. Same way there are other tools available for Android as well. There are many ways. I'm gonna show you that.
Okay. After the completion of this Selenium and all, you are going to give the online session for Android also, mobile
I'm going to
testing.
give you the initial session about the configuration because the configuration is the major part. So I'm going to give you the session on how you can configure on Android and on iOS on Mac. So these are the two things I'll be covering. Rest, I mean, everything works same way like WebDriver works, driver.find element. So you can go through the videos for
Videos.
yeah. And if you have any questions, any doubts, then you can get in touch with me.
So let us say if I am running like gmail.com in web testing, the same script which will work for mobile testing.
Same script will work, but the locators might not be same because there are different user agents. User agents are different for the desktop browsers, and the user agents are different for the mobile browsers. So
But the thing is the same thing as my question is, but the same thing if www.facebook.com we are opening for desktop and opening for mobile, it is pointing to the same server, right? Actually.
no, actually, let me show you one thing. Let me show it to you over here. So if you locate this element, let's say if I go to gmail.com. So Gmail shows like this over here. If I go to the login page of Gmail, so let's say this is the sign in page. And if I go over here, m.gmail.com, this is a mobile view. Probably this looks okay. They have not provided it in this way, but maybe for Facebook it is there, m.facebook.com. You need to change the user agent of your, okay, let me log out from my profile. Just give me a moment. This is a mobile browser, so how to log out? Just give me a moment.
Okay, sure.
Probably the logout is somewhere over here.
Because my question is, so whoever developed www.facebook or www.gmail.com, so they are developing once and deploying to the server, so we can access from any device. It doesn't matter the element HTML web
No,
HTML web element should be
on
the
your
same, right?
mobile. No, on your mobile devices, there are some websites where they interact with different user agents. There's a concept of user agents. Uh, just give me a moment. Let me log out from here, and then it will be automatically logged out. Give me a moment. Dot Facebook.com. Okay. So if I go over here and if I go to this, let's inspect this element. You can even see the UI. I mean, it's completely different over here on both screens, right? And if you inspect this element, you can see this is your email, right? This is from the mobile
Yes.
device. This is from the mobile device basically, right? This is a mobile user agent I'm actually using over here, and this is from your desktop browser.
Yeah, I got here because the URL itself is different. If you go to mobile, m.facebook. Is there, but some sites like Amazon.com, so
Yeah,
this will be same
that
same
is
URL is there.
that is what I said. Like for some websites, they are different. But let's say if you open my website, you'll find it same because it is from the same server, the same browser agent. So you're not gonna
So it
see any difference.
in that case, the same script will work for both, right?
If your website is same, if your locators are same and the UI is exactly same, it will gonna work.
Okay.
Yeah. But if the
Okay, okay.
website is
Thank you.
specifically designed for mobile, then the locators might be different. So you need to take a look at these things.
How we can say this is specifically for mobile? We can see URL kind of thing, m dot kind of thing.
That is you are seeing over here. But I mean, if you open
Okay.
the same thing on your mobile browser, you're gonna see this interface only. This is basically a user agent that I'm using. We actually need to change some property in your browser. If I change that property in my browser, it will convert my entire browser into the mobile browser itself. So then, whenever
Okay.
I open Google.com or any website, it will be opened as a mobile device only. So I have a lecture over there for Android for these things. You can go through that user agent lecture on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Hello, Raman. This is Arvind. Raman, I just want to know how. Hello,
Yeah, Arvind.
Raman, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Raman, can we implement that? Can we implement that extended report in the framework
Yes, you can implement extend report.
which you showed today?
Yes, you can implement that. I mean,
Oh,
that is the reason it's been built. I mean,
okay,
it
okay,
is very easy to use. I specifically want that everyone should go through that particular tutorial of extend report. It's very easy to use.
okay. Thanks, Raman. Thanks for your time.
All right. All right, guys. Any more questions? Anyone else?
Raman,
Yeah.
Prabodh here. You just replied to my query. I did not get you actually. So I should
Okay.
send an email to you or something.
Yeah, I'll gonna reply on your query. I'll forward you an email on that.
Okay, fine.
All right. Yeah, guys, don't send any query on Selenium APM123 at yahoo.com. That is basically a dummy ID. Just if you have any queries, then just send it on trainer at way2automation.com only. All right. Raghavendra, I've unmuted you. You have any queries? All right.
Hello, hi Raman, this is Raghavendra.
Yeah, Raghavendra. Yeah, I can hear you, Raghavendra. Raghavendra, can you hear me?
Hello,
Raghavendra, I can hear you. Probably is not able to hear me. Let me know. Okay, that's fine. Guys, anyone else? Any queries?
Hey Raman, it's about ALM. Like, how can we connect ALM through Java code? Is there a way we can use any APIs?
I'm not sure there is a API for ALM because ALM itself is paid. So probably let's say Java API for ALM. If there is an API for ALM, then we can connect it. How to access ALM data using REST API. So this is REST API in Java. Probably through REST APIs we can connect it, but there must be, if there is a Java API available, then we can use it. But I'm not really sure about it because this is a product of HP and it's a paid version. So Selenium has an integration with TestLink. TestLink is again an open source. Even you can integrate Jira. There are APIs available for Jira as well. So through these APIs, you can make a connectivity. And again, Selenium has no role to do with it. There's only a Java API. If it is available for ALM, then you can use that. All right. So I actually need to take a look at for the ALM part. If I found something, then I can revert you back for the ALM part.
Thanks, Raman.
All right. Any more questions, guys? All right. So in that case, guys, we are good to wind up the session. If you have more queries, then just email it to me across. All right. Thanks a lot.